Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 15th PAVE Europe virtual panel. My name is Guido Di Pasquale. I'm the Managing Director at PAVE Europe, Partners for Automated Vehicle Education in Europe. So today the question is, can we really deploy AVs in public transport this decade in Europe? So this is the question that we will try to answer today with experts, especially involved in a European funded project called ULTIMO, and we will learn more about that from the coordinator and the experts. And within this project, we have demonstrations, a deployment of AVs in a few European cities like Geneva, the Oslo region, and the North Rhine-Westphalia in Germany. All of them have regulatory, technology, and business challenges, of course, and our panel will try to explore the pivotal role of AVs in revolutionizing public transport. So how it is important that everyone, including the public transport operators and the public transport authorities and the industry itself, understand this revolution. So we discuss also the European AV industry's competitiveness compared to other regions in the world, say China, for example, and also the feasibility and the costs of the autonomous vehicles and the maintenance of autonomous vehicles. So these are all very important questions, including, of course, the revolution or what is expected in terms of jobs creations and jobs changes in the sector. To do that, we have three exceptional experts, both in the AV space and the public transport space, and representative of the ULTIMO project. We have Christian Willoch, Executive Advisor for Radical Innovation at Ruter, the public transport authority in Oslo, and then Christian will tell us about what radical innovation means. I'm very curious about that. We have Dimitri Konstantas, professor at University of Geneva and also very deeply involved in ULTIMO project. And Mara Kohl, team lead mobility at Bayern Innovativ in Munich in Germany. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for accepting the invitation and to be part of this PAVE Europe virtual panel. So let's start. I would like to ask to introduce yourself and what you do in your daily job and what is your relation with the autonomous vehicle space and also with the project that we discussed today, ULTIMO project. Mara, would you like to start?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much. So, as you already said, I work at Bayern Innovativ, which is the innovation agency of Bavaria. So, our main focus there is to try to foster innovation. We have a lot of SMEs in Bavaria, a lot in the mobility sector, but also say cross-sectoral innovation is a very big topic, and we try to bring like new ideas together to foster innovation. We try to also to educate people or to kind of give inspiration to think out of the box and try something new, to give people new methods that they can kind of take back and revisit their daily processes and maybe make them a bit more thought-provoking. So my personal perspective here is like mobility sector overall. So trying to include all different stakeholders, all different players, and kind of finding out where we all go together in the or how we can proactively influence the future of mobility together to make it like more the future that we want than just let it happen. And my role here today is as an advisory board member of the ULTIMO project. And yeah, maybe also as the German representative, I can also talk about, say, the Munich perspective, but also, of course, about the German perspective in ULTIMO.
Thank you, Mara. And Christian.
Yes, hello, Guido. Thank you for this opportunity. Thank you for PAVE Europe for arranging this event. My name is Christian Willoch, and I work, as you say, in Ruter in Oslo, in Norway. Ruter is the public transport authority of the Oslo region. My background is from IT management in various businesses and private and public area. But the last 9 years I've been in Ruter, first 7 years in various roles in the IT management and digital development of all our systems. Last 2 years, I've been in the Department of Radical Innovation in the team of autonomous vehicles, and my specific responsibility is for Ruter's engagement in the ULTIMO project, which you will hear more about, of course, in this session. I'm a grandfather of 3, soon 4 kids, and my oldest grandson, Hector, he's 3 years old, so in 2039, he'll be 18 years old, and I will be 72. Probably shouldn't be behind the wheel even in 2039. So in what way can my work in Ruter contribute to a future of social sustainability where the need for convenient private vehicles is replaced with just as convenient public transport solutions? And how can I contribute that Ruter realizes the vision of what we call sustainable freedom of movement for all? So this is what, gets me to work every morning these days.
That's brilliant. Thank you, Christian. And Dimitri.
Thank you, Guido, and for organizing the whole webinar. So I'm Dimitri Konstantas. I'm professor at the University of Geneva. I'm an engineer by education. And for the last 7 years, I'm working for the creation of services with autonomous vehicles. That is, not to design vehicles, but how to make a viable and sustainable service. I was the coordinator of the Avenue project, which successfully proved that it is possible. And I'm the associate coordinator and technical manager of the ULTIMO project, where we want to prove that now we have the next step to go to large-scale deployments. To end up small 1-2 vehicle deployments, to go to 15 or more vehicles to a site, to prove that we can have a viable and commercially sustainable service that provides a real service to the passengers and to the citizens. So that's more or less. Yeah. I can talk more about ULTIMO for hours.
Yeah,
so.
But thank you, Dimitri. And I would like to stay with you, and because we are talking about ULTIMO project today and what is around this project. So it would be great if you could introduce the project and to tell us more about the project. And then I have a $1 million question for you, or 1 million euro question for you, and which is the topic of today. Can we really deploy autonomous vehicle in public transport this decade in Europe?
Thank you. Okay, the ULTIMO project. Well, we started in October 2022. This is a 40 million funding project for a 4 years period. 23 partners all over Europe. And the target is to create a service. We consider that the autonomous vehicles will come and go, but the service will stay. And when we say creating a service, take into account all elements of a commercially viable public transportation service, which means inclusiveness. Public transportation should be for everybody, to facilitate all people to go there, and provide services. If we suppress the driver, somebody has to provide the services in the vehicle that today are done by the driver. Identify the obstacles, legal, of course, technological, and economic. How are we going to do it that the service will be at least equal to what we have today? Now, in the ULTIMO project, we go beyond the standard. That is, we talk about door-to-door on demand. This is a revolution. We are not talking about standard services with fixed timetables, which means that it might be more attractive to people to give up their private car, since they will be kept in front of their door and will be delivered in front of where they have to go. Because as we say today, Public transportation picks you up where you are not and takes you where you don't want to go. So we will change that. At the same time, we say that since we need to have a commercial viable model, we want to explore the idea of chartering the public transportation vehicles during the off-peak hours when there will be extra capacity for urban logistics. Is it doable? How can it be done? How can it be managed? So that it's, an autonomous vehicle sitting for 3 hours has a high cost. So it has to be used. So non-public transportation services can be a solution to be investigated. So we have 3 sites, as you said, in Norway, in Switzerland, and in Germany. Each of them with own specificities, differences, common points. And what we want is to prove that we take into account all the commercial requirements. We want to stop, not to avoid, let's say, customer locking situations, because right now, operating an autonomous vehicle is more monolithic. You start with one, you stuck with that. And this is not a commercial model. This is not competition cannot do. So we propose standardized APIs. We propose standardized high definition maps, if possible, so that in the future, in 2035 and more, in a city like Geneva, you will have 400 vehicles from 5 different manufacturers, all interacting and interrelated. One of the basic items we take in ULTIMO is that we use the vehicle according to the needs. If we are in the center of the city where the speed is no more than 20 kilometers, why to take, let's say, a Lamborghini that can go 400, or you will only go to 20? So we take a lower quality vehicle. When you're in the outside, when you need 60 kilometers, then you take a higher vehicle. At the same time, the facilities on the vehicle, we don't have to have services, for example, all vehicles to have a ramp for wheelchairs. Since it's on demand, we send the right one. So we reduce the number of vehicles that they have a ramp, but the service is identical. We send the right one. So the right vehicle for the right use. That is very big, very high level what we want to do. I'm happy to talk more of these things, but give me 10 hours to explain you.
I can imagine. And what's your view on the deployment of autonomous vehicles in public transport in the coming years? Is it realistic based on your experience with the previous projects, Avenue and ULTIMO today?
What do you mean coming years? How far? 5 years, 10 years, 100 years?
We talked about next decade.
I think it is 100% sure that we will have them. And then we're talking about next decade, 2035, 34, 35, we will have them. Technology will have catch up. It will be to the level. The model will be known, commercial level, the policies will be there. Technology is there. We are expecting with the ULTIMO project, in the end of the project, the last year, 2026, to really deploy at least 15 vehicles per site on a real commercial service. So if you talk 10 years, guaranteed it will be there. And actually, this is what we are saying, that if a city wants to deploy in 2035, they must start the design today. They should not wait 2032 or 33. They must start today because they have to renew their fleet. They have to, when their existing fleet will be end of life in the next 5-10 years, that's where they have to make the change. So design must start very early.
Thank you, Dimitri. And it's also mentioned by some questions from the audience. Mara, I would like to ask you about the German pilot in ULTIMO. Especially, I was very interested by the fact that this demonstration is about accessibility. So give the possibility to people living in rural areas or distant areas to access transport, public service. So it's a very important use case for AVs and especially offering a service to people with reduced mobility, for example. So could you tell more about that? And also, given the importance of this possibility given by the autonomous vehicles, why or what's your opinion about the concerns, or why the public transport operators or the sector in general don't see the urgency to invest on autonomous vehicles to improve the service?
So maybe to jump into first, tell you a bit about the German side. It's at the city of Herford, which is like a very typical, would say, mid-sized German city. It's almost something like 70,000 inhabitants. So with a city center, rural area that starts rather quickly if you come from a perspective like I'm living in the city of Munich, where you have city for like ages going on before it gets rural. And of course, there's public transport, but more concentrated in the city center. And people who are living a bit outside of the city, which is not that far away if you look at the kilometers, but there's no reliable connection. And I mean, a bus like every second hour or 3 times a day or something, that is not a connection that you would probably think about selling your car, because you can rely on getting downtown. So linking rural areas to the city center, where people can then change into other means of public transport, could be trains, could be buses, or whatever is available in the area, I think is a big challenge, but also has huge potential for AVs. From, like, say, one perspective, it's a geographical connection that you can, or the gap that you can close, but then there's also something, a 24/7 hour operation that you can make possible with AVs, so that even if you come back late, or you need to catch a train early in the morning for a business appointment or whatever, you can rely on getting there in time. And I think this is something very important for ULTIMO also, is that it is a user-centric project. Yeah, putting the user at the very center of everything, all the services, all the ideas that we come up with and test in the project, is that we want to have a good service for the user, so that the user in the end can rely on the system, can rely on the AV to then dare and get rid of their cars in a few years. That's nothing that I mean, you do quickly, but and if you're not in, say, doing the innovations or evolving the system with really a radical perspective on the user, this will not happen. And if you say, this goes hand in hand, if you have a user's approach, it is by definition needs to be inclusive. And I think Dimitri also already put it very, very clear that not every AV then needs to have a ramp or special facilities, but that it is possible to have to cater for a huge number of different needs, and then just send the right vehicle to this special need the person has. And what I would like to add there is that it does not always need to be people, for example, with reduced mobility or visually impaired. It could also be, I don't know, a father with 3 kids, or just a lot to carry, where you don't have a hand-free, and you would need 3 more probably to just kind of get everybody in there. Yeah, that could be a special need also, that could be catered for by a special environment of an AV. Yeah, but also, how do visually impaired people book a trip on an AV, and how do we make sure that they feel safe throughout their journey, really from door to door, and maybe, don't have to find the door of the public bus, or don't have to walk long distances between the door and a public transport that they want to access. Second question was about PTO, PTAs, right? Well, if we think about PTOs, PTAs, I mean, transport operators are facing so many challenges simultaneously at the moment. That I think it's not really an easy task to kind of single out the ones that you need to address like right now and that are the most urgent. Everything needs to be done at the same time. If I look at Munich, for example, the financial volatility that we've seen through COVID really challenges the local operators. Or we have the Deutschland ticket in Germany now for a few months, where you have some like a flat rate for all regional public transport, and that is a real struggle too. So there's so many struggles on so many different levels. Where do you find people? Where do you find money to actually invest in pilot projects or in any kind of innovation that will make you better in the future, but will cost you now? And then there's a lot of, I would say, a lot of uncertainties in the system already, still in the system, and this is so important. Or this is why it is so important that projects like ULTIMO can demonstrate and show how it can be done in pilot sites, and that other PTOs, PTAs can learn from the experiences, because not everybody needs to go through this difficult and strenuous process of doing it the first time. Yeah, there are projects out there, and I'm very sure Christian will talk about it later, how they are doing it. Yeah, where others can learn, and where maybe big cities with more money and more people can kind of try to push it forward, or big companies go into smaller cities like Herford and demonstrate how AVs can work in mid-city sizes. I don't think it's ignorance. I don't think that PTOs, PTAs don't see the need and the innovation potential, and maybe it's, if there are PTOs, PTAs hindering the development process, then it's maybe just out of fear of how am I going to manage it, like the next 2 or 3 years, and not out of ignorance of the whole development process. Yeah, leave it there for now.
Yeah, and thank you, Mara. And certainly, Christian has a lot to transfer, or we have a lot to learn from Ruter, because Ruter was a pioneer in the AEV space, already starting a few years ago now, 2018 or 19, if I'm not wrong. And now, thanks to ULTIMO and the support, the local support, you are moving to the next level and deploying more vehicles with a purpose on that. So could you tell us more about this project, and what's the purpose or the goal that you have with the project?
Yes, thank you for nice words about our work. We are certainly have our big ambitions, but also inspired by them. So many people talk about public transportation and AVs in this space as complementing public transportation, or gap fillers is also a word that is used. I understand the notion of that. We want to take it one step further, and we believe that public transportation that autonomous vehicles in the future is a part of public transportation. So in that sense, we need to think about transformation, right? When we have this available in huge sizes. Like I said, we've been trialing this since 2019 with 2-3 different pilots, and we do firmly believe that autonomous vehicles is part of the future of mobility. What we've experienced in Oslo, and probably other places in Europe, I would guess, is that post-COVID, there's actually an increase of purchase of private cars. It's increasing, right? And also the vehicles, the cars, they're electric, especially in Norway. It's I think by 2026, every single vehicle, the new vehicle being sold, is going to be electric. They're more personalized. They're more attractive. It's basically almost a singing and dancing machine made, around you, and all the convenience you need. So we need to challenge that. And how do we do that? Now, some years ago, we made a study. It's called the Oslo study by a consultant company called COWI, COWI. You can Google it and download the report. And this study is kind of like the basis of our whole strategy and our whole vision. It is a theoretical study and a hypothesis, so to speak, right? It says, okay, look, if we keep the high frequency lines, you know, the buses that really are having a lot of, you know, people, and the metro, which is a very efficient way of transporting people to fill, we keep these high frequency, high load lines. But we replace all private cars and all other vehicles with shared autonomous vehicles. Now, shared is a very important word here, because it's not a robotaxi we're talking about. Shared autonomous vehicles. So for one thing, what would happen in Oslo in that scenario? Well, from 600,000 private vehicles, no, sorry, 600,000 vehicles in total in Oslo, we can reduce that by 93% down to 30,000 shared autonomous vehicles. So 30,000 is kind of like the big, hairy goal that we have in mind. It sounds a lot, but it is not when you think about it. So how will this impact traffic? Well, the reduction of traffic, obviously, private cars, a lot of them are standing still, right? But still, with this scenario, we can reduce the traffic between someplace between 14 and 31%, which is a lot, right? Now, what about convenience? Well, you know, calculations were made, and it shows that around 80% of everybody who's then ordering shared autonomous vehicles has a waiting time less than 7 minutes, right? For me, that's very convenient. From thought to being on the vehicle, it travels me somewhere where I need to go, 7 minutes. I'm fine with that. I can't even, you know, brush my teeth before the vehicle is outside my door. And then you obviously will have some detour time because it's a shared autonomous vehicle. So it will pick people up, it will drop people off, it will make dynamic routes. The worst case scenario here is when private cars are autonomous, because that will come. We all know that. So what will happen? Well, you certainly won't pay anything for parking in the car, so we will have a lot of empty cars driving around. So the worst case scenario is a doubling of traffic, which would just lead to a total breakdown of our whole system, right? So this is the background. So the pilot we're doing now in the Groruddalen Valley, it's a valley just northeast of the Oslo center. Oslo has approximately 700,000 residents. So in the Groruddalen, it's 1/5 of that. So around 140,000 people live in this area. And we have geo-fenced an area there around 20 square kilometers. So it's a pretty big area. And we want to establish a free float of autonomous vehicles there, meaning not fixed routes from door to door. Well, not door to door, but we call it pickup point, drop-off points, virtual, maybe some physical, but virtual drop-off points, pickup points. At the moment, we are at around 60 of them, and we want to increase it. And we want to integrate it with the existing public transportation, right? So that they can take it from the nearest PUDO, pickup drop-off point, to the metro station, for example, or just from one PUDO to the other, or to the football field, or whatever, to IKEA, to do the shopping, instead of using their private vehicles. And then the clue is we need to have this at level 4. We need to get the security operator out, and these vehicles need to travel in at least 60 kilometers per hour. We have those vehicles in place already. They have the permission to drive in 60 kilometers an hour with a security operator, that, mind you, but still. And we are working to increase this to 90 as we speak. So our hope is that this will be our last pilot. Once we've done this and we've, you know, learned everything we need to learn, we can start to scale up and we can start to procure, which is a method we use to get this in our operations. And actually, we want to start this upscaling by 2027 already. Ideally, we are talking about figures around 500 vehicles, and then, you know, expanding the area. But of course, I mean, what are the challenges we have? Access to mature technology is obviously, you know, the main case. Yes, we do know in parts of the world there are certain companies that you know are there, and Europe is evolving as well in a positive way. We need to challenge the form factors, because it's all about form factor of the vehicle. It's not only the technology. If we believe in shared autonomous vehicles, we need to also have vehicles that support that people that are not known to each other travel together, right? And that needs a form factor for people to be comfortable. And then it's this whole transformative nature of the technology. I mean, we need the maturity. the customers need to adapt this and not be afraid of it. So it's all about, like Mara said, to involve the citizens, involve the politicians, involve other kinds of stakeholders, the operators, our owners. We need to address a lot of political questions. It's about regulation. I mean, the list is big. But, you know, we don't go to work because things are easy. We go to work because things are hard.
Thank you, Christian. This is that's an important statement. We all know that. You mentioned that technology is coming from outside Europe, that Europe is trying to catch up. My question to you, Dimitri, based also on your experience, of course, how do you envision the European AV industry ability to compete with other providers like Chinese and US, and what proactive steps do you suggest public authorities take to enhance such competitiveness?
Well, if I see past experience on electric vehicles, photovoltaics, and the disaster that happened in Europe with the radical inactivity and short-sighting of the European authorities, I'm afraid it may go the same direction. There is no way to compete with the Chinese companies, the massive state subventions. The subventions is high. There is no way to compete with the private funding of United States. The United States, they have risk. They take risks. Europe do not take risks. So, but we can do it. We still have space. It's new. What we need, I'll give you the example. When Airbus say, I want to make a new plane, they just make some plans and they make some specs. And then they go around and say, who's going to buy it? Once they have 50 people saying buying, they start building it. Why? Because at this point, they can get funding. There are 50 customers, they're going to buy 50 planes, or how many. Here, all the PTO, PTAs, they say, we wait until the technology is mature before we decide. When the technology will mature, it will not be Europeans, because nobody will invest in Europe if nobody is willing to buy now, and there is no concrete promise. So what we need is what has been asked. I don't know if you saw for the photovoltaics, the situation is happening now in Europe, and the photovoltaic company, they're asking a clear commitment of the European Union to buy the stock they have today so that they can get cash and start building. Well, the European Commission is saying the countries will do it, so it's passing the ball to the countries, will pass it the ball to the cities, will pass the ball to the municipalities, and they will disappear. So we need concrete measures to say we invest on that. It's strategic. We have to invest to put hundreds of millions in there, not as loans, but as grants, not via the European Horizon Europe program, because there the money is very small. You cannot give 100 million to one company, not in the European Union Horizon Europe program. So subventions and commitment from PTOs saying in 2030, we will need 400 vehicles. We sign it, not orally saying it in a conference. Sign it down and we get the offers. And that is where the Europeans will be able to raise funding because they have a market now. There is no market. So nobody will invest in European companies. We see so many constructors, manufacturers, European manufacturers closing one after the other. No funding. We still have time, but it requires immediate action by the European Commission to start and the countries to commit that in 2030, not tomorrow, if you have vehicles that they fulfill these requirements, we will buy them. That is enough. Put it in written and sign it. That will allow raising funding and will allow the European industry to advance and do things. We have technology that is finally taken over by outside of Europe, just moving, because we cannot find the funding locally. When the Americans said to move how many billion for clean energy, how many European companies just decide thinking of moving there because they cannot get the equivalent funding here. So, and we should not depend on the American or Chinese technology. They are made for another reason. United States is not public transportation, it's private transportation. we have specificities in Europe that the Americans cannot understand. The train system in Europe has nothing to do with the train system in the United States. The buses are different service, different requirements, different needs, different mentality. So we have everything. We just need some money.
And that's clear message, Dimitri. Thank you. And Mara, I would like to stay also in this field and considering the need for an ecosystem for commercial AV deployment. What are the actions and the timeline that you anticipate, and what are the stakeholders that are crucial in facilitating this process? And also if Munich, because you are involved in the Munich activities, is thinking and have a vision, has a vision about it.
Maybe if I think about if I think about the timeline, or in your question, you had, I think, a very important 2-3 words, and it's an ecosystem. Yeah. So ecosystem for commercial AV is something that is not existing right now. That is in the process of being built. Yeah, where stakeholders are added, where structures are not quite there, where communication is not clear yet. So it is not only say a development task on a technological level, but also on an ecosystem level. Yeah, to get people in, to get the right political people, to get the right technical people, to get the right PTOs, and this is all in the process of building. Yeah? Of course, projects like ULTIMO can kind of do it on a small scale, yeah, and getting all the right partners in and kind of try out how it could feel in the real world. And if you are in a region where you find the right people for such an ecosystem, yeah, you probably already have a pilot running right now. And I think this is what can happen in the short term, is that you get the right people together to kind of try out how a pilot could work, how you could integrate it in your local PTO structures. Yeah, maybe great step would be also on something that we have not talked about yet, say the digital sphere. So mobility as a service, yeah, to integrate it in also a digital ecosystem to make a service, AV service or door-to-door service, on-demand service, whatever, bookable through an app for the smooth and seamless experience that we're all heading for. And for that, of course, you need to know kind of whom to involve. In Munich, as you already also asked for Munich, for example, we have bigger in Bavaria, we have a project called Autonom Ready, funded by the Bavarian Ministry for Economic Affairs, where we gather all the information of who could be an important player in the ecosystem. Yeah, so where are pilots, where are test fields, where are people or institutions with knowledge that you could use, or maybe on the first trip just go to and talk because they have experiences, and where you kind of get some knowledge, get some input for your projects, to hopefully then be able in a say more of a medium term to scale these pilots, to have a good way of knowledge transfer from one pilot to the other, to integrate autonomous vehicles into public transportation. What we do here in Munich at the moment is that we start with on-demand transport, just because it's so difficult to get your hands on a big fleet of AV vehicles to kind of really deploy and integrate. So to start with on-demand, to kind of get the system around the vehicle up and running, to get the booking facilities going and kind of get people used to it's a new kid on the block. So a new possibility to move from A to B with these on-demand services. And as soon as the vehicles then become available, to subsidize the on-demand vehicles with like the AV vehicles, and then the fully autonomous system that we are all heading for. And we're not starting say in the overall city, but also only on the suburbs, because there's a very dense net of very good functioning public transport in Munich, in the city, available. So you actually, you don't really need to put something new in there, and there's no room on the streets to do so. But as soon as you get more outside of the city, in the suburbs, it gets more complicated. So we will start there, and it will be a night service. So because the connection in the night in the suburbs is really not that good. So there's a huge, it's a completely different approach than in Oslo. Yeah. So, but that's how Munich is doing it at the moment. And the idea is that these on-demand transport will be in place in 2025. Yeah, so we're also talking pilot there, but we need these pilots to learn to, I mean, the long term, we all know, Dimitri also already sketched it. Yeah, in a decade, we will be there. We will have fully autonomous vehicles integrated into a public transport system. But I mean, we've already talked about it. What makes it so complicated is that you need so many stakeholders, and you need so many, say, actions to be taken by these stakeholders, and they are new to many of the stakeholders, and many of the stakeholders haven't worked together before. That the process is it feels so slow, it feels so difficult, but it needs to be done. Yeah, it's always, I mean, it's always the same. If you do things for the first time, it is more complicated. You need regulation and legislation. You need infrastructure to be in place. Yeah, not only the cars, but also kind of the surrounding. Is there something? Are there special needs? Are there special roadside units? Maybe yes, maybe no, depending on the car, depending on the idea, or that. Yeah, what you can buy actually. Yeah, do you need special infrastructure? How do you educate and train not only the staff but also your customers? Yeah, they need to get used to this new way of transportation. How to educate them? A lot of research and development, of course, goes on in the background, but also already with these tasks, yeah, you need to bring together transport companies. You need to have the authorities on board. You need to have insurance companies. You have to have research institutes. You have to have fleet management. You have to have communications people to get the end user on board. So quite a lot to be done still.
I'm very happy that you mentioned that, because this is exactly the mission of PAVE Europe, and try to bring together all the different stakeholders and helping us in educating the public, that at the end we'll have to understand and trust this technology. And,
yeah, it's still a big job. Yeah, a big job
still
there.
A big job. Yeah. And it's it's, as you said, it's this space, the AV space, is bringing together players that were not used to work together. So that's a novel aspect. Christian, I'm intrigued by the vision of Ruter and your beliefs in the autonomous vehicles, and the fact that these autonomous vehicles can improve public transport. So can you tell us about your vision, and especially what would you recommend to other European PTAs like Ruter or cities?
Well, it's interesting what Mara told about, what Munich is thinking in the roadmap, and talking about demand responsive transport there. Let me be clear. This pilot that we're doing in Ruter, it's not a tech project. This is not a tech project. It's not about proving technology in the sense, or building technology. It is applying technology that already exists in the world. It's about applying it to our business model, which is public transportation, right? So on-demand transportation, as we know today, with the driver and everything, is a very important entry. So one of my recommendations to other cities is ensure that you have a roadmap. Think transformation. Think ecosystems. And ecosystems not only in the different modes of transportation, but also ecosystem in terms of the digital sphere, right? think mobility as a service already now, because today's demand response to transport is tomorrow's autonomous vehicles in many ways. The big difference, and this is why we are so clear on our objectives in the Grower Doll pilot, big difference is when you remove the driver or the security operator, the whole user journey fundamentally changes. A lot of questions arise that we need to figure out. How do I know if this is my vehicle? I'm blind. How do I know how to enter? How do I stop it? You know, all these questions. I feel unsafe. And the role of our customer center totally is a totally different story, right? But at the end of the day, start with on-demand and thinking ecosystems and thinking totality. Our vision, like I said, is, you know, we want to transform the society towards an even more sustainable freedom of movement for all. That is Ruter's vision. And for all is, you know, one of the main keywords here, to be honest, because what we need is, well, of course, we need to ensure that everyone can travel regardless of age, social background, prerequisites, permanent or temporary reduced mobility, right? But it's, at the end of the day, it's a bit about giving everyone equal opportunities, you know, children, equal opportunities to get involved in all the activities in the city. Old people in Norway and in Europe, we're getting older. We still want to move around freely. This is, you know, the promise that we need to deliver on. Another thing that public sector and cities should think about is that this is such a transformative nature, this technology. And why should public sector, you know, take an active role? Like Dimitri mentioned, why not wait to 2035 when things are mature and obviously probably cheaper, right? And then, you know, just shop it in like we do with buses and everything else. The thing is that no innovation happens in a vacuum. There's always supply and demand, right? So we need to create the demand in this industry, in all of these value chains in this industry, from the OEMs, meaning the people who are producing actually the cars, the vehicles, to the technology providers, to the fleet management operators, and so on. We need to create that demand. And who will define that demand? Well, as public transport authorities and operators in Europe, we can together work on this to make a big force of nature. So we become interesting and we can drive this towards sustainable solutions for everyone, instead of, you know, leaving this technology to other not that sustainable ways of transportation like we see in other parts of the world, which we are trying to avoid in Europe. Public transportation, you know, has a really strong case in Europe. We have good public transportation, right? We always have. So we need to join those forces, you know, so we can create this sustainable path. And we need to talk about regulations, and we really need to be proactive to make this change and ensure that this technology plays it our way and not another way.
Thank you, Chris. I like very much this approach of proactiveness and the fact that we need to, everyone needs to be involved, including the local authorities, because at the end they will be the ones deploying or supporting the deployment of autonomous vehicles. So we are towards the end. Just a final round. I would like to ask you any final remarks that you would like to highlight, anything that we missed. Of course, I know that you could talk for hours about the topic with your experience, but is there anything that you would like to highlight or remark at the end of our conversation? Dimitri?
Yeah,
yeah.
one thing that we didn't say, but it's implicit, we're talking about inclusiveness, talking about people that have problems, handicap. It's not only that. And at some point, Mara was saying, having the application to reserve, not everybody will be able to use a mobile phone. So whatever we do, we should be able to allow people with no mobile phones to be able to do it. That is another story. This is another part that the PTOs has to think how to do it, how to have these things. And we will have a transition period quite long. Many people of certain age or whatever, they're used to go to bus stops. So we have to make a combination and figure out how to make the transition, not to have people to be scared of what is happening, not to be, say, destabilized by a service that now they're used. Same itinerary every day, and they are random itinerary every day. So we need to get the psychological feeling of the people. We need to understand how it is. And then another thing, the people talking about the Americans doing things like Waymo, robotaxis. Just to remind, United States was on private transportation. Owning a car was part of the American dream. Europe are talking public transportation with buses. The American model does not fit Europe. It's not how we are used to it. And we don't have space. We don't have space to have taxis. I mean, if you ever go to Athens, in Syntagma Square, there's a traffic jam by taxis. So that doesn't solve the problem. We need mass transportation. However, if companies like Waymo or Apollo deploy in Europe, they will collect data. And they will use this data to improve services. And that is where Europe will come in and try to figure out what to do with it. So there are many things that I said here, but as you said, we can talk hours, days on that.
Thank you, Dimitri. But I think that also Christian maybe could confirm that even the model of taxi and robotaxi could really help to complement public transport and to provide services to users that today cannot access mobility. I don't know, Christian, if you have any final remarks on that.
Well, we do not propose robotaxis in the sense of robotaxi as a business model, meaning private persons having their own vehicle taking them from A to B. So let's be clear on that. As long as we define robotaxi as that is not what we're proposing. We are proposing vehicles that take 6 to 8 persons in a shared autonomous vehicles. And that is a very major difference. And also that the whole ecosystem, it's integrated in the whole MaaS system, right? That you get it as an option and linking it together with other models of transportation. That is a very big difference. That's why I never use the word robotaxi, even though at the moment, the vehicles we have, they are normal vehicles and they can look like robotaxis, which you see in other parts of the world. But the business model is not. So that's a very important distinction. My final remark is, too many times I'm discussing with friends, family, colleagues about the fight, quote unquote, against a private car. And I mean, people like me, 50 plus, when we cannot compete with the convenience of a private car. We own it. It's free to use once we own it. And, you know, it's difficult to discuss in those terms. I normally have a slide when I have a presentation with the title saying new habits for new inhabitants. And I'll go back to my grandson at 3, right? It's all a question of what kind of habits can we now start to establish so that he doesn't see any need of a vehicle, not even have a need of taking a driver's license, right? I mean, that's not many years until this happens. And I think that's where the fight is. We need to start to create these habits. We already see also in Norway, young people, you know, at least in the city center, are content with the public transportation as it is, right? But still, unfortunately, we do see an increase of young people taking the driver's license. So we need to work on that. But we need to establish these habits, and we need to create a system for the future inhabitants of our cities, and not try to always try to convince existing citizens who love their cars to leave their cars alone. Personally, I think that's a lost fight. But we will get old at some point, and we shouldn't be behind the wheel.
Thank you, Christian. And Mara, your last words and remarks.
So I've never owned a car, to reply to Christian. Living in the middle of the city with small kids, we are creating the habits that we need for the future. Living them right now, actually. What I would like to underline as a final remark is that I think a lot of times people think, if we look at the development of an AV system, that is terribly technical and that we need a lot of technical talent to make it happen. And I would like to promote to try and attract, say, also more diverse workforce to this field. Yeah, so to broaden the the understanding for AVs and the AV system in the public, but also in future workforce, to get good talents of all kinds of backgrounds to this area and create this ecosystem that we have talked about, with many perspectives and many talents, to make it as inclusive and as say forward-oriented as possible. I think there are a lot of opportunities for people to work in this area who have no idea that they will end up say working in that kind of ecosystem. And I think there's a big potential there to bring AV as a system forward.
Yeah, that's a very important remark. Thank you very much. And thank you very much all, Christian, Mara, and Dimitri, for joining our very interesting conversation today. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. The video will be available on our YouTube channel and also a podcast, so everyone will have the opportunity to listen to our conversation. Thanks again. Hope to see you soon, and also the next virtual panel that we will organize soon. Yeah, looking forward to see you next time. Bye-bye.